Here is the question that Democrats almost certainly will not have to ask themselves, at least in the short term, but in the long term they will. Was Mrs. Clinton the hill to die on? Rich Lowry, the editor of National Review magazine, tells it like it is this morning, or at least partially, which is why this video is in 4 segments. In a syndicated column today, he points out that with regard to Emailgate 2, the second Emailgate investigation, or the resumption of the Emailgate investigation by the FBI. Dun 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 dun. The Democrats asked for this. They did. They asked for this. I mean, the only one Hillary and the Democrats can blame for this mess is Hillary herself. They knew all this. They knew all of her scandal baggage. They could have run Elizabeth Warren. I was positive that they were going to. Elizabeth Warren and Julian Castro in 2016. I was saying for months that's going to be the Democrat ticket. The Democrats can't possibly be stupid enough to nominate the worst conceivable national major party presidential candidate of the modern era, at least maybe in all of American history. They can't really do that, will they? Nah, couldn't be. Well, shows what I know. And I thought that was, just certain doom for the Democrats because any of the Republican candidates will be able to wipe up the floor with her. And then the GOP didn't even nominate a Republican. I keep overestimating the intelligence of the American voter. I really do. Unbelievable. Oh, before Democrats burned James Comey in effigy, and by the way, at a Trump rally yesterday or over the weekend, they were bringing, Trump supporters were burning Hillary Clinton in effigy. Joy. National Socialists versus Marxian Socialists. And conservatives have no place to go except Evan McMullin. Remember that name, folks. On November 8th, you won't have to remember it after that, but November 8th, Evan McMullin, Mindy Finn, that's the only place to park the votes of true conservatives. But Democrats should think about how the FBI director came to have an outsized influence on the 2016 election in the first place. It's not something Comey sought or welcomed, after all. A law enforcement official who prizes his reputation, he didn't relish becoming an object of hate for half the country or more. And in fact, that understates it, because Comey has become the object of hate for the entire country, just not all at the same time. You remember how back in July when Comey announced that there would be no criminal indictment of Mrs. Clinton, and the Democrats hailed him as a professional with the highest of integrity, and just lauded him with compliments because, of course, he decided in their favor. And, of course, I'm sure that was on the orders of Reichsfuhrer Loretta Lynch, so I don't think that he was making that decision of his own accord. I think he was just doing what he was told. But, and then now, of course, on a dime, James Comey announces, well, new evidence has come to light, so we're reopening the investigation, and all of a sudden Democrats are flipping over to, oh, he's terrible, he's a partisan hack, he's corrupt, he's trying to throw the election to Trump, and oh boy. I tell you, Democrats are so transparent in their opacity, aren't they? And it's the same thing with the Republicans. The Republicans just blasted Comey when he announced that there was not going to be any criminal indictment or prosecution of Hillary Clinton. They blasted him, they criticized him, they crapped all over him, and now they are hailing him for his integrity. And James Comey has come home, and oh, shut up. Shut up. Picture yourself in James Comey's shoes. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I mean, that's why you would not want to be. You would not want to have that job. You know, it's funny. The number of jobs in Washington, D.C. that I have observed over the past, well, over the Obama years, I guess, that I would not want to have, that list just keeps growing. I mean, you know, the Speaker of the House, a Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, that job is not enviable at all because it's like trying to herd cats. And just on and on. And now the Director of the FBI, when you have one of the major party candidates under criminal investigation, and yet they're still running for president. They were actually nominated. Or Hillary Clinton was actually nominated with this cloud over her head. Like Pigpen's filth cloud. It just... I would not want to be James Comey, folks. Would any of you? I mean, you'd have to tell me what the pay is, but geez. I mean, you got to know what you're getting into if you're going to take a job like that. You do. You just do. You have to know what you're getting into. And be prepared for it. And think long and hard. You know, if you're the kind of person who just wants a quiet life, no hassles, nobody getting on your case, nobody publicly defaming you, then, you know, that's not, actually, politics is not a career for you in any way, shape, or form. Electoral, appointive, administrative, it doesn't matter. If you want a nice, relaxing life, don't go to the Beltway. Don't go to Washington, D.C. It's not the place for you. So, I mean, like I say, it's not something, any of this is not something that Comey sought or welcomed. A law enforcement official who prizes his reputation, he didn't relish becoming an object of hate. No, the only reason that Comey figures in the election at all is that Democrats knowingly, and this is the key word, knowingly nominated someone under FBI investigation. It's not like Democrats got surprised by any of this. This has been common knowledge, and just in a general sense, this has been common knowledge about La Clinton Nostra for a quarter of a century. None of this is a surprise. I mean, this is a specific manifestation of it, and that's been known for several years. I mean, the Democrats knew this. They nominated her anyway. Elizabeth Warren could have... Joe Biden... Democrats could have saved themselves all this hassle and nominated somebody else, but no, they didn't. It won't make any difference in the election outcome. Mrs. Clinton's still going to win, but they would have a lot less angst on their hands, and it wouldn't be close. It's not going to be all that close as it is, but I mean, with Elizabeth Warren or Joe Biden especially, I mean, Joe Biden would have been the perfect foil for Donald Trump, wouldn't he? Because Joe Biden's likable. He's a doofus, but he's likable. I mean, he would be the likable version of Donald Trump. Up to and including the groping. Remember when Ashton Carter was rolled out as Barack Obama's commissar of defense last year, and Joe Biden was there, and he was feeling up Ashton Carter's wife while Ashton Carter was at the podium speaking. And wrong, and Mrs. Carter just sat there and let him do it. But Joe Biden's likable. Donald Trump is not. I mean, this could. I don't know if a double-digit percentage popular vote landslide is possible. I tend to think not, but this. All I know is the Democrats would have been better off with Biden or with Elizabeth Warren or with anybody else but Hillary Clinton, and yet that's what the Democrats did. You know, they knew, and they did it anyway. Now, once upon a time, namely any presidential election prior to this one, this enormous political and legal vulnerability would have disqualified a candidate. Not this year, and not in the case of Hillary Clinton. The country has clearly lowered its standards in this election. That's a continuation of a trend, actually. And Donald Trump's madcap candidacy provides evidence of that every single day. But Hillary's nomination was itself an offense against American political norms and an incredibly reckless act, or would have been if GOP had nominated anybody else. And the Democrats are supposed to be the party acting rationally. Oh, my. Yeah, Mrs. Clinton effectively locked up the nomination in June and was not cleared of criminal wrongdoing by the FBI until July. Well, they didn't really clear her. They just said they weren't going to indict her. That's all they really said. I mean, if they had cleared her, they couldn't have opened up the investigation again. And that's really all they've done. They haven't found any bombshell, smoking gun. They haven't found anything like that. They're just reopening the investigation. And how long did that investigation take? That took a really long time. I mean, we're talking 650,000 additional emails. They're not going to go through that in a week. And this was the cake. I mean, this is baked into the cake. This is not a huge game changer. It should be. But then if things were the way they should be, a lot of things would be different. So, what if Mrs. Clinton had been indicted? Because again, Mrs. Clinton effectively locked up the nomination in June and wasn't cleared, or wasn't. The FBI didn't announce that they weren't going to indict Mrs. Clinton until a month later. What if she had been indicted in that period of time? Would Democrats have run her anyway? I mean, would the super duper delegates have flipped against her? Because, I mean, that's the huge party boss thumb on the scale, after all. I mean, would they have substituted in a 74-year-old socialist who had lost the nomination battle, or someone else who hadn't even run? Joe Biden! Joe Biden! Excuse me. Any of these circumstances would have been unprecedented, but the Democrats risked it. They did it in part because they could never bring themselves to fully acknowledge the seriousness of the email scandal, and relatedly, the ethical miasma around the Clinton Foundation. In fact, they were used to these things. Like, for a generation. It's just part of the background. It's like you don't look up at the sky if there are no clouds in the way and question why the sky is blue or why it's blue. It just is. Same thing with La Clinton Nostra. They're surrounded by scandals. That just is. And it never impeded them politically before. Why would it start now? I mean, Democrats considered it all another desperate trick of the vast right-wing conspiracy. God, I wish we were smart enough to be able to form a workable conspiracy. We're not even close. What do I mean? Clintonoid henchman David Brock demanded that the New York Times retract its initial report of Mrs. Clinton's exclusive use of a private email account in March of last year. So over a year and a half ago. A parade of Democrat operatives poo-pooed the whole thing, from La Clinton Nostra spokesman Karen Finney, a politically motivated series of attacks, to James Carville, not going to amount to a hill of beans, which actually was not inaccurate, just not for the reasons he was trying to suggest, to Howard Dean. When they first got together on a debate stage last October, Bernie Sanders, Weekend Bernie, as I came to refer to him, the only man who had a chance to stop Mrs. Clinton, pleased the crowd with a ringing denunciation of interest in her emails. Remember, I don't give a damn about her emails, and neither do the American people. Democrats bought the just so stories offered up by the Hillary Clinton campaign. The FBI investigation was just a security review. The FBI wasn't investigating Hillary, only her server. Anything to deflect from the seriousness of the matter. While Democrats willfully looked the other way, they put James Comey in an impossible position, as I alluded to earlier. An indictment would change the course of American history. That was all on him. And he ultimately blinked. But he also put on the record the recklessness of Mrs. Clinton's practices as Commissar of State in an attempt to create public accountability. In other words, he did, in essence, the same thing, the equivalent thing, that Chief Justice John Roberts did when he ruled in favor of the constitutionality of the individual mandate in Obamacare 4 years ago. He was trying to protect the reputation of the court, and that was a political decision, and he didn't want to drag the Supreme Court into a political confrontation, and so he just punted to the electorate. And the electorate, of course, made the wrong decision. So Comey's conduct is open to criticism, but there is no way to please everyone when handling an investigation with such high political stakes. His notification to Congress last weekend is another case in point. All that can be said is that if Democrats didn't want the FBI to have any part in the election, they could have considered that well before handing Hillary Clinton their nomination. Trump is a deeply flawed candidate, but he caught a wave of popular fervor, or rather he exploited it. Hillary, with her astonishing vulnerabilities, is a production of the Democrat elites who did everything to drag her fat ass over the finish line. So just how vulnerable is Mrs. Clinton right now? Because remember, the only thing that's changed is that, well, the FBI has reopened the investigation. That's it. No smoking gun, no criminal indictment. No, they're just opening up the investigation. She's no worse off than she was before, in PR terms. Now, if it weren't for the new trove of Huma Abedin Wiener emails, the blockbuster news this week would come via a Wall Street Journal report that the FBI is investigating the Clinton Foundation, although Fox News reported the same thing at the beginning of the year, so that hasn't changed either. And Hillary, of course, dismissed it as an unsourced and irresponsible claim that has no basis. Bottom line is, the email scandal and the Clinton Foundation will dog Hillary until Election Day and after she wins into her presidency. But then, could a Clinton presidency resume any other way? David French builds on the Lowry piece by pointing out that the Democrat elite intentionally inflicted Hillary Clinton's corruption on America because they're just as corrupt as she is. They didn't see it as any big deal. They just see it as this is the way of things. While the GOP establishment weakly fumbled around for an answer to Donald Trump, Democrats were ruthlessly rigging their primaries for Mrs. Clinton. When the definitive post-mortem of this dismal election is finally published, it should go something like this. The Republican establishment was foolish. The Democrat establishment was ruthlessly stupid. But not as stupid as the Republicans, okay? This is a question. This is an election where both parties were unfathomably stupid, and just the Republicans you can't beat the Republicans when it comes to stupidity and self-inflicted wounds. The Republicans fumbled around incompetently and spinelessly in the face of an unforeseen challenge that shouldn't have been any challenge at all. The Democrats willfully and intentionally did all they could to carry a corrupt politician over the finish line, forcing the American public to choose between one known liar and another. Of course, that's not forcing. Nobody's forcing the American people to do that, of course. There's always Evan McMullin, my fellow Americans. Nobody's forcing you to choose between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Now let's review some other facts. According to an outstanding weekend report in the Wall Street Journal, the FBI continues to investigate Hillary Clinton's maybe criminal abuse of the Clinton Foundation as a front for systematic influence peddling, and her maybe criminal mishandling of our nation's secrets. Neither of these scandals is new. They both predate the launch of her presidential campaign. And, the fact that this is part of the background is why she's going to survive this, too. So you understand that. I dislike Hillary Clinton as much as the rest of you, but you've got to cure yourself of this incurable, forlorn hope that, now we got her. No, you don't. And you never will. You think that people would learn that after 25 years of catch me if you can, but you can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. Questions have swirled around the Clinton Foundation since Hillary was confirmed as Commissar of State. Damaging evidence of outright influence peddling, including evidence of large-scale donations made to the foundation as the state commissariat considered a crucial uranium deal, broke fewer, than 2 weeks after her campaign announcement. On April 23, 2015, the New York Times published an extraordinary story detailing the amount of money that was funneled to the Clinton Foundation and to Bill Clinton directly, as the state commissariat considered whether to sign off on the sale of 1/5 of all uranium production capacity in the United States. Uranium! Hillary Clinton sold 1/5 of the stuff out of which they make nuclear weapons to the Russians. And Barack Obama gave the rest to the mullahs in Iran. The chairman of the Russian-controlled corporation donated, guess what, $2 1/3 million to the Clinton Foundation. And a Russian investment bank promoting Uranium One stock paid Bill Clinton a whopping $500,000 to give a speech in Moscow. One speech, $500,000. Good work if you can find it. Hey, I'll give a speech in Moscow. Give me $500,000. Oh, I don't qualify. Oh, no. I'll legally change my name to Clinton if that'll help. Still wouldn't help? Well, screw you. The Clintons violated an agreement with the White House, the Obama White House. They can't even be straight with their own party. It's to publicly identify all donors by failing to disclose the Uranium One contributions. Hillary's state commissariat approved the deal. I guess it's kind of the Democrats' version of Sarah Palin's going rogue. Yeah, going rogue. They control the party and it's going rogue. 1 month before the Uranium One story, as Mrs. Clinton was preparing to announce her candidacy, the Times broke the news that still dominates the campaign today. Hillary exclusively used a personal email account to conduct government business. Given the Clintons' long-standing history of personal corruption, it should have been obvious to Democrats then that Hillary's scandals were going to dog the party throughout the campaign and if she won throughout her presidency. It would be a repeat of the 1990s when an entire party was hijacked into relentlessly defending conduct that they would loudly condemn if it were attributed to any Republican. And of course, now the Republicans have nominated somebody who will commit just as many scandals if he somehow got into the White House in his own right, which he won't. Instead, the Democrats did far more than merely acquiesce in Hillary's decision to run. It did virtually everything it could to guarantee her victory, as did the Republicans. Scandal-free communist politicians such as Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden stood aside. Super-duper delegates signed on with Hillary en masse. The DNC put its thumb on the scales to such an extent that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was ultimately fired to appease the Sanders holdouts. When angry Trump voters were accusing incompetent Republicans of rigging the system against their man, in fact, they were doing the opposite, ruthless Democrats actually were rigging the system for Hillary. And I just got to point out again, folks, why did Democrats do this? Why did they knowingly sign on with Hillary Clinton, push her over the top when they knew she was dogged by scandals of all kinds, all sizes, all over the place? For the same reason that Trump supporters hopped aboard their guy's railed transportation device. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to resist that today. Because the Clintons are winners. They're winners. The Clintons always win. Well, Bill always won. Hillary didn't win in 2008, but that was, Barack Obama, idiot savant, once in a lifetime, once in a generation, same thing, more or less. Kind of phenomenon. The Clintons are winners, just like Trump's brand is winning. That's why they stuck with Hillary, because the Clintons always win. That's the perception. That's their brand, too. I mean, I did tell you folks that Trump and Hillary are two sides of the same coin. They're cut from the same cloth. It's another example of it. Now, Democrats are still ruthless, of course. It is Hillary who inarguably created this incredible mess, and it is her aides who inarguably compounded it. But from the wails of the entire Democrat establishment, one would think the true villain of the story is poor old FBI Director James Comey. Comey was in an impossible position. He had informed Congress that the FBI's email investigation was complete, a fact that was no longer true. Stay silent and he would inflame the tens of millions who would see a double standard applied to the Clintons. Well, they already saw that. Speak up and experience what he is experiencing today. A furious assault from a Democrat establishment that only weeks ago was applauding his wisdom and integrity because he was ruling in their favor. At least speaking up carries with it the virtue of truth. She is under investigation, and the American people need to know. Now, the contrast with the hapless Republicans is profound. Confronted with Donald Trump, the Republicans lurched from denial to incompetence to spinelessness. Even the god-awful pledge that torments Republicans such as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio to this day originated as a part of an effort to limit the damage Trump would cause to the party. Remember when he said that, well, if I'm not treated fairly, I'm going to go third party. People are telling me all the time, I should run third party. I should make an independent bid. Remember that? And a few months later, I bleeping won? Republicans hoped he'd stay out of the race after he inevitably, they thought, lost in the primary. Some of us didn't believe that he would even subject himself to a vote. But see, the point is that pledge was meant to bind Trump, not the GOP. And it backfired. The super PAC firing squad that helped kill Rubio's primary chances wasn't designed to help Trump, but instead to help Jeb Bush. Oh, help me. The Republicans were the gang that couldn't shoot straight. And then when disaster loomed, couldn't stand straight. But the Democrats are the gang that shot straight and stood tall for one of America's most corrupt politicians. Future historians will no doubt be confused by the choices of the party elites. While history is replete with leaders whose vices were excused for the sake of their brilliant virtues, this generation has excused vices for the sake of elevating a man and a woman of just their vices. They don't have any virtues to offer. They are scum. What do they excel at besides opportunism? Nothing. But Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton do bring with them access to power. Jay Caruso at Red State this morning demands that Democrats admit that they blew it this year by nominating Hillary Clinton. The problem with that demand is that while it may be true, they really didn't blow it because they have Donald Trump as their backstop. Donald Trump as their safety valve. In other words, Republicans blew it by nominating Donald Trump even worse than Democrats did by pushing Hillary Clinton. Now, with the election 1 week away, the likelihood of Hillary Clinton becoming president is greater than that of her losing. Because like I said earlier, in the previous segment, nothing's really changed. Nothing's really changed. Her being under FBI investigation, that didn't impede her progress in this campaign. Why would it now? This renewed investigation, and remember, 650,000 emails to go through. 650,000. Isn't that twice what was on Mrs. Clinton's server? How long did that investigation take? It took over a year. I think this is not going to be gotten through in a week, in 10 days. This just guarantees that we're going to have plenty of things with which to entertain ourselves. And a lot of you out there are going to be provided with endless future instances in which to exclaim, "Now we got her," and then no, we don't. Because you people will never learn. Catch me if you can. But you can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man, remember? Still, watching the histrionics she, her campaign, and fellow Democrats displayed over the weekend about James Comey was pretty revealing. As we, like others, have written about and talked about at length in pixels, on podcasts, on this YouTube channel you're watching right now, Hillary faced her own dream opposition candidate in Trump. La Clinton Nostra guaranteed it. He has no experience, is prone to erratic behavior, has an opposition file a mile thick, has difficulty articulating his policies, which are all virtually identical to hers, and is one of the least liked candidates in presidential history. I'll point it out again, if she was running against Ted Cruz, it'd be a dead heat. If she were running again, and probably Cruz would be in the lead by now after what happened over the weekend, and if the Republicans had had the proactive sense to nominate the most electable candidate in their field, Marco Rubio, he would have a 370 to 168 projected lead in the Electoral College. This wouldn't even be close. We would not be talking about this scandal. This would just be the last nail in Hillary's coffin instead of a Hail Mary at the last minute. So here she is, 7 months out from the election, 7 days, excuse me, and instead of leading by a comfortable margin, Mrs. Clinton has to fight all the way to the finish line. Fewer than 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Clinton led Trump and the RCP average by nearly 8 points. People on her team were already talking about the transition. Are you ready for Commissar of State Joe Biden? Oh, I can't wait. Her average polling lead is now 3 points. Well, she's still projected to win the popular vote by, let me see here. What is it here? 6 points and change, I believe. Let's see. She's projected to win the Electoral College 323 to 209 with Utah's 6 electoral votes going to Evan McMullin. She's projected to win the popular vote by 5.5 points. That's down a couple points from where it was. So, it's, in other words, it's not going to be she's not pulling away, but she's going to we'll make it across the finish line because there's just not time for any dramatic reversals. And remember, Trump. So every day, Republicans deal with lectures and hectoring on choosing their terrible candidate. But it's past time for Democrats to admit they did the same, except it's not going to hurt them because the Republicans' incompetence was worse, as it always is. Democrats, well, they don't have to thank God that Hillary is not facing a candidate like Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, or Carly Fiorina, because Republicans are the stupid party, always have been, always will be. But the Democrat Party could have had a more robust debate over who should be their nominee. Barack Obama wasn't far into his second term when the Hillary coronation started, or rather resumed. One can't help but think what kind of position Democrats would be in now if Joe Biden was the Democrat nominee. I mean, Biden may be a buffoon, and he is, but he's a likable buffoon. And in today's world of politics, that goes a long, long way. I mean, remember last week, Biden said something about, happy hands Biden. So that's the context here. And he said, if it were up to him, he'd take Trump out behind the barn and beat the crap out of him, or words to that effect. And then does anybody take Joe Biden seriously? Especially when he says things like that. That should have been beneath Trump's notice, but no, Trump fired back because he's a counterpuncher. He said, that's not going to happen. I'd beat the crap out of Joe Biden. Okay, so now you got 2 septuagenarian grandfathers beating the crap out of each other behind a barn. Yeah, that's political discourse in the United States in 2016. Gosh, it makes you proud to be an American, doesn't it? Now, even assuming Hillary wins, which she will, there will still be issues. The email scandal's not going to be resolved by next week, and even if the weight falls on Huma Abedin Wiener, in other words, if she's Mrs. Clinton's next line of defense and she falls on her sword, it will still be a drag on President Rodham. If the investigation stretches out, the country will be faced with the possibility of a new president well, it will. Comey will see to that. And 650,000 emails, folks. That doesn't happen quick, all right? The country could be faced with the possibility of a new president taking the oath of, will be faced with the possibility of a new president taking the oath of office under a cloud of an FBI investigation. But then it's a Clinton presidency, so there will always be some sort of investigation going on. That's what Clinton presidencies are like. It's amazing that there are so many Republicans who have forgotten that from the 1990s. Now, this is just, and of course, this is just what we know so far. There's still the investigation into the Clinton Foundation that's ongoing, despite the efforts of the Injustice Revenge and Cover-Up Commissariat to clamp down on the FBI's efforts. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean anything comes of either of these investigations, which nothing ever will, because this is the Clintons we're talking about. Catch me, catch me, catch me if you can, but you can't catch me on the gingerbread man. But this is par for the course with Bill and Hillary Clinton. Again, how could so many Republicans forget this? It's a basic foundational fact of American politics. The Clintons always have scandals and investigations swirling around them, and it never touches them, and it always ends up helping them politically. That's just the way of things. And I say that not out of any by any means, but because that is what has been the reality for 25 years. It's just stating a fact. There's no reason to believe that will ever change. Just as the fact that the Democrats have put their chips in with a candidate who may face a multitude of investigations during her time as president. Those weaknesses are evident already as she has to fight to the death against Donald Trump, the easiest possible opposition to face, and the only reason that she's going to become the next president of the United States. After Hillary wins, even with a respectable margin, or by a respectable margin, she'll need the Senate to be in Democrat hands to get anything done, and that is not guaranteed. As a matter of fact, the current election projection has the Republicans losing 3 seats and retaining a 51-49 majority. And in those circumstances, because the Democrats, Senate Democrats have already said, they've come right out and said it. We get the majority back, the judicial filibuster is gone, nuked. They've already said it. They've come right out and said it. They're not pretending. They're not hiding their intentions. If Republicans retain the majority in the Senate, that complicates things just a smidge. And in fact, Pat Toomey is within fewer than 2 points of his Democrat challenger in Pennsylvania, so it might even be a net loss of only 2 seats. Might be. See, I think what this is going to impact, reopening the Emailgate investigation is going to impact is it may save the Senate for the GOP. It's not going to put Trump in the White House, but it might just save the Senate for the GOP because voters are thinking, well, we can't there. So Hillary's probably going to win, but we got to make sure that there is a two-house full congressional check on Ronin would actually, in the long run, be better for the right than a Trump victory. The Trump victory would produce the same policies as under a Hillary Clinton presidency, but it would be the Republicans who would be put in the position of having to defend the defensible for 4 years. I'd rather the Democrats have that problem, frankly. I mean, and that's the best case scenario with what Trumplicans have forced upon the GOP. That's the best case scenario. Didn't have to be this way. That's why just don't vote for either one of them. Don't leave your fingerprints. Don't help either one of them. They're both terrible. You know, if the right could remember, hey, wait a minute, we're conservatives before Republicans. Let's vote for Evan McMullin. We could avoid this entire situation. We could still salvage this entire situation. And if wishes were horses, beggars would fly out of my ass, I guess. So if Hillary Clinton, when Hillary Clinton is inaugurated, while under an FBI investigation, and with the GOP majority in Congress, Democrats will find it difficult to advance their agenda. In other words, for years of grid. And by and large, gridlock is a good thing. It's not it's a mixed blessing in the direction and policy over the past year. Plus, balance, it's better for us than it is for them, for the right as opposed to the left. So at this point, it should be Democrats concerned for the candidate they've chosen. Even as a winner, she's still a loser. Now, you may and you should look down on the GOP for choosing Trump, but the truth is Democrats really blew it this year, too. It's just that they're still going to win anyway. Now, what is the real, true lesson to be drawn from the resumption of the FBI's investigation into Emailgate? Well, it's not the lesson that certainly Trumplicans and conservatives want to learn. Not what they want to be reminded of, but it's the truth, folks. It's the reality. It has been for 25 years. It remains so today. The Clintons haven't changed a bit. Their sleaziness, bad judgment, and scandal management playbook are the same as ever. And why would any of that have changed? The Clintons always win. It always works. You don't need to fix something that isn't broken. Jim Garrity does the honors on this segment. Some fans of Bill Clinton's presidency choose to believe that its cavalcade of scandals reflects how well the country did on his watch. Because the economy was humming along in the dot-com boom and America was at peace, they say, Washington was free to focus upon the tawdry misdeeds and allegations against the Clintons. That self-serving interpretation never held much water, and the proof is before us in this election cycle. The economy is moving. The fabric is heavy. The Chi-Coms are conquering the Pacific. The Russians are conquering Europe. The Clintons are still behaving badly. And they're still reacting as if they're the victims when their bad behavior is pointed out. The law doesn't really mean what it appears to mean. Career law enforcement officers are being partisan. Deny, deny, deny! Attack, attack, attack! Bring out the former prosecutors to denounce FBI Director James Comey like Ken Starr before him. In the 1990s, greed drove the Clintons to effectively rent out the Lincoln bedroom in exchange for campaign donations. Now it drives them to seek $12 million donations to their foundation from the Kingdom of Morocco. In the 1990s, Bill Clinton's selfish belief that the federal government existed to serve his needs drove him to ask White House staff to help Monica Lewinsky find a job. Now the same selfishness drives the complex, corrupt intermingling of the U.S. State Department or Commissariat and the Clinton Foundation. In the Clintons' minds, this is the way things are supposed to be. It is the way of things. To them, it's perfectly normal for Bill to collect giant checks from entities and countries that have business before the state commissariat Hillary is running. It's perfectly normal for Hillary to receive $225,000 from the University of Nevada at Las Vegas for a speech about the exorbitant cost of higher education. Oh my. It's perfectly normal for NBC News to give Chelsea Clinton a $600,000 part-time gig. Yeah, but how many of you have ever had a part-time job where you made $600,000 for your efforts? When you're a Clinton, people just throw enormous amounts of money at you for no reason at all. Well, other than Clinton. I'll legally change my name if that's what it takes to be set for life. In the 1990s, arrogance and a belief that he was above the law drove Bill Clinton to commit perjury and suborn others to do the same. Now it drives Hillary Clinton to keep all of her emails on an insecure private server, flouting the public records laws, congressional subpoenas, Freedom of Information Act requests, and other tools of public accountability because she wanted to be transparent with the Russians and the Chi-Coms and opaque to the American people. She's worked in government her whole life. She knows damn well how all of those tools work and where they apply. Her mentality is clear from her actions. We, the little people, don't deserve a transparent account of her words and actions, despite what the law says. Because the law wasn't meant to apply to her. She's special. Hillary Clinton is exactly who she has always been. And there is no reason to expect her to change. She remains convinced that she's been uniquely victimized by a vast right-wing conspiracy. Again, I wish the right had anywhere near the mental wattage to actually pull off a conspiracy. We'd be in a lot better shape if that were the case. I mean, how could any conspiracy get so vast while being so incompetent and gutless? It's a question that a lot of you Trumplicans and conservatives might want to contemplate instead of your rage after your guy goes down in flames next Tuesday. So she remains convinced that she's been uniquely victimized by a vast right-wing conspiracy so irredeemably evil. And not every villain is Lemons. Evil! That it justifies almost any act of retaliation, any lie, any violation of the law, any unsavory exercise and abuse of power. In other words, tribalism. This mindset allows her to rationalize anything, smearing the FBI director or the state commissariat inspectors general or the victims of Bill's unwanted sexual advances as for the greater good of La Clinton Nostra. So the Clintons are who we thought they were. They never stopped being who and what they are. And why should they change now that it's gotten them this far? From a pragmatic standpoint, it kind of answers itself, doesn't it? It's a rhetorical question. After all, if the Clintons have learned anything from past scandals, it's that lying, counterattacking, and waiting out the storm usually works. And you know what? It probably will this time as well. Forget probably. The Clinton scandal playbook will definitely work this time as well. I give you Jolifont at Red State, who points out today that this second FBI email-gate investigation will go precisely the direction of the first, because there's already a pro-Clinton conflict of interest in the reopened email-gate investigation. Now, come on, didn't you kind of suspect that, Trumplicans, conservatives? Here's the good news. The Commissariat of Injustice, Revenge, and Cover-Up is getting involved in the reopened investigation of Hillary's email-gate scandal. Yay! And the bad news, the Assistant Attorney General, Peter Kadzik, who is apparently overseeing and definitely coordinating the reopened investigation of Hillary's email scandal, is John Podesta's longtime lawyer, longtime friend, and you know, John Podesta just happens to be the campaign chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Yeah, that's right, folks. The day after Hillary Clinton testified in front of the House Select Committee on Benghazi last October, John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, met for dinner with a small group of well-connected friends, including Peter Kadzik, who is currently a top official at the U.S. Injustice, Revenge, and Cover-Up Commissariat, serving as Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs. The post-Benghazi dinner was attended by Podesta, Kadzik, super lobbyist Vincent Roberti, and other well-placed Beltway fixtures. The first mention of personal contact between Podesta and Kadzik in the WikiLeaks dump is in an October 23, 2015 email sent out by Vincent Roberti, a lobbyist who was close to Podesta and his super lobbyist brother, Tony Podesta. Oh boy. You ever seen a diagram of the internet, of what the internet actually looks like, and it looks like this huge snarled bush of connections? Well, and there you go. In it, Roberti refers to a dinner reservation at Posto, a Washington, D.C. restaurant. The dinner was set for 7:30 that evening, just one day after Mrs. Clinton gave 11 hours of testimony to the Benghazi committee. Podesta and Kadzik met several months later for dinner at Podesta's home, another email shows. Yet another email sent on May the 5th of last year indicated Kadzik's son asked Podesta for a job on the Clinton campaign. Oh, and you people thought that you had Hillary right where you wanted her. Jesus. What's more, Podesta describes Kadzik as a fantastic lawyer, and here's the punchline of the day, ladies and gentlemen. He kept me out of jail! Oh, boy! So, the individual that kept John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, out of jail is running the reopened FBI investigation into the Hillary Clinton emailgate scandal. Yeah, that's gonna get her, isn't it? Jesus. Oh man, you have to laugh because otherwise, you'll turn into you Trumplicans. It'll be like Michael Ironside's character in Scanner, just. Kadzik represented Podesta during the Monica Lewinsky investigation. And in the waning days of the Bill Clinton administration, Kadzik lobbied Podesta on behalf of Mark Rich, the fugitive whom Bill Clinton controversially pardoned on his last day in office. That history is cited by Podesta in another email hacked from his Gmail account. In a September 2008 email, which the Washington Free Beacon flagged last week, Podesta emailed an Obama campaign official to recommend Kadzik for a supportive role in the campaign. Podesta, who would later head up the Obama White House transition effort, wrote that Kadzik was a fantastic lawyer who kept me out of jail, quote, close quote. So let's sum this up, folks. Now, instead of just having an attorney general who parks her plane on the tarmac to talk with Bill Clinton, we have her campaign chairman's lawyer who ran interference during the Clinton impeachment and whose kid is interning with the Hillary campaign, running the reopened FBI investigation into Emailgate. No close ties there! No wonder Hillary thinks this is a non-story.